It was in this small city on the coast of South Korea called Tongyeong, in this beautiful concert hall. It was really like on the tip of this small city in South Korea, in this concert hall, in this setting with music or with water on all sides and music inside. And it was terrific. And so music from all over the world, but some Canadian composers as well. And so one of the highlights for me was hearing a piece by Randolph Peters, Winnipeg composer, and it was a piece called Hallucinations. And it was performed by this orchestra, Gyeonggi Philharmonic Orchestra. His piece was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I have to say it was a real highlight for me, and no bias associated whatsoever. It was just a fantastic piece and performed so well. And he actually got the chance to go to Seoul. The orchestra is based in, he called it a suburb of Seoul. It took 2 hours to get there on the subway. So he got to work with the orchestra and listen to rehearsals and travel down with them on the bus. So it was, I think, a really great experience for him as well.
So I guess Grand Forks would be a suburb of Winnipeg then,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So when did you start pairing up music and travel? I know music has been a part of your life for a very long time. You've been a broadcaster for a long time, a writer. Music always been part of your life. But when did you kind of get the idea that travel and music could go so well together?
Oh, gosh. It might have hit when I was, I guess, a university student, and I wanted to take a break after my bachelor's degree before going on to study music history. And so I took a year off, and I went to Vienna to be an au pair, Mädchen. So I stayed with the family and looked after their kid. But then I got to go to the opera once a week, and I just went to all these concerts that whenever I had an evening off. And so it was just a year of experiencing the wonderful music of one of the great musical cities, Vienna. And so actually that's one of the cities that's going to be a part of this course.
Well, tell us about Vienna then. And how many times have you been to Vienna?
Oh, gosh, maybe about 5 times.
About 5 times,
yeah,
okay.
And I still just love going there for concerts. And, you know, we just say every time we go there, why don't we come back every year just to go to concerts? You know, look at the lineup. You can go to the Musikverein, one of the most beautiful concert halls in the world. The Vienna Opera, you know, it's just a stunning hall. And, you know, you just get some of the, you know, world-class productions there. And so in this course, we're going to talk about some of the great composers that we know from Vienna.
There's a couple, right?
There's a couple. But we're going to talk about them in the context of the city and how their music flourished in that city, and how the city kind of shaped their lives and their music. So, for example, Mozart. And he came to Vienna. He was very unsatisfied with his job in Salzburg. And so he just quit, and he took a chance. He didn't have very much money. He was married. He was 25. He went to Vienna and just decided he was going to make a go of it on his own. So there's Mozart trying to be a freelance composer, a freelance artist. And it worked out pretty well for a while. He was getting lots of commissions. Lots of people wanted him to perform. And so because of that, he ended up writing a lot of piano concertos that he could perform himself. So in a period of like 3 years, he wrote something like 14 piano concertos. That's incredible. And then later in life, he became a Mason. And, you know, that was kind of connected with his feelings surrounding the Enlightenment movement. And he just had this feeling that the social classes should be more equal. And so you see some of that taking place in his music. For example, Marriage of Figaro, we have kind of a reversal of roles here. Figaro is he's the servant, and he's a hero of the opera. And then Count Almaviva, he's the count, but he's the boor in the opera. So you see kind of social things in the community making their way into his music. And yeah, through the course, we're going to talk about some of the musical institutions, the halls that music was performed in, and, for example, the Vienna Philharmonic, which is it's a very interesting musical institution even today. For example, it started in 1842, so it's been around for a long time. What's interesting is that it's run by a committee of musicians. So there's not this big board and you know, the president and in fact this committee of musicians, they make all of the decisions on who's going to join the orchestra, little decisions about, you know, presentation. They choose the conductors. So the Vienna Philharmonic does not have a resident conductor. So they basically just choose whoever they think is the greatest in the world right now, and they invite these conductors. And so they've had people like Barenboim and Carillon and Franz Welser-Most more recently. So interesting.
Almost like a collective or a cooperative.
Yeah, it is. the downside, bad side, is that they choose the musicians to come in the orchestra, and they are quite notorious for not hiring women. And it's only in the last couple of years that that's changed. And so there are rules around it. Like the musicians have to be in the opera orchestra for 3 years before they can join the symphony orchestra. And then there's a probation period of 3 years, and then the musician could be just fired, after this kind of commitment of 6 years. And so it's very, very interesting. And also it's a very kind of Central European orchestra. It still is. Very few visible minorities in the orchestra. And, their philosophy is that they just think there's a certain sound to the orchestra, and that it's something cultural, and it's ingrained, and it's in their blood.
Well, and at this point, it's historical, too.
Yeah.
They don't want to break with tradition, I suppose, and keep up what they're known as one of the greatest orchestras in the world. And
they do perform at the Vienna, at the Musikverein, one of the most beautiful concert halls in the world, but the best acoustics in the world as well. And so we get to see them every year on New Year's Day for their Strauss concert. And so that's something we always look forward to.
I'm in the studio with Andrea Ratuski. We're chatting about this course she has coming up in May through the Manitoba Conservatory of Music and Arts. It's called Musical Cities, London and Vienna, and it takes place. I'll give you more details on how to get registered for that in a second. But when we think of cities and we think of music, for example, people think of Winnipeg and they think of all the great musicians to come out of Winnipeg. And one of the reasons they say is because we have such cold, harsh winters. People stay inside and they'll jam in the kitchen, or they'll play, and they can't get outside, so they sit around at home and just play music and play music and play music. What do you think it is about the cities London and Vienna? Or let's just stick with Vienna for 1 second. What is it about Vienna that has brought about such amazing composers and orchestras? Because you've been there. I've never been to Vienna, so I don't know what the feeling of the city is, the architecture,
I wonder if it's partly that, pardon me, the culture is, the music is just so ingrained in people. Young people know classical music, and it's not like here where it's something that you learn. It's from foreign countries. In Vienna, you grow up with it, and people don't find it boring. They know composers.
Well, it's a European music, basically.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And I think people have more opportunities to go to concerts. It's just there. And, sometimes students get cheap seats so they can get to concerts, very easily. So I think it's partly that, but I think it's just this tradition that they grow up with. And there's not this kind of attitude that it's, for a different kind of society. It's for everybody.
It's not elite.
It's for everybody. Yeah. Yeah, I really think that's the case.
So let's move on to London, because the other half of the course is London. Tell me about London and your association with London, your connection with London.
Okay,
First of all, why London?
Well, I was just trying to think of all the great musical cities, and there's just so many to choose from. But London is one of those places where there was a period when everybody wanted to go to London. So there's this period in the 18th century when people like Haydn, he was an Austrian in Austria, but he wanted to go to London. And Mendelssohn wanted to go to London. Handel got invited to London. So they all wanted to go there. And there were some great concert series, and they were kind of competing. So they wanted these great composers to come. And so London was the place to be for a certain period. Earlier, in the time of Shakespeare, there was always music in Shakespeare's plays. It was very important. And during the Elizabethan time, a lot of choral music and vocal music. And then later in the 20th century, think of Elgar, Vaughan Williams, and Great Britain, and great composers. Yeah.
So just before we wrap up, tell the listeners, if they come to your course, other things that they might expect, other exciting things about the course they might expect.
Okay, well, we're going to find out about all those composers: Mozart, Beethoven, Brahms, Mahler, and the Strausses. And so we're going to talk about the great composers of these cities, but we'll also kind of get a sense of what was happening in those cities at that time, and what the kind of musical context was. And the same in London, starting with Shakespeare's time, and Purcell and Thomas Tallis, and going through composers like that, and looking at some of the concert halls, like on our postcard, we have Royal Albert Hall in London, and have a look at some of those great institutions as well.
It covers so many different bases: music and culture and history and architecture and
yes, and
society,
what's happening in the arts. Yeah.
Well, it sounds amazing.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Michael.
Yes, Andrea. So I'm talking with Andrea Ratuski, and we're talking about her course called Musical Cities, London and Vienna. And that takes place on Tuesdays in the evening, May 3rd to 24th, and on Wednesdays, May 4th to 25th at Bryce Hall, University of Winnipeg. You can register. If you go to our website, classic107.com, and just follow that little picture of Andrea there, we've linked you over to the Manitoba Conservatory of Music and Arts website. And when you link over there, just scroll to the bottom. It says register now. And that looks like a great course. And you don't even have to leave Winnipeg to get a little taste of Vienna and London with Andrea Ratuski. Thanks again for coming, and pleasure to see you here. And I should also mention that I'm going to be off for a couple days. And guess what?
I'm going to be here tomorrow at 6 a.m.
Exactly. She's going to be on this mic tomorrow and Thursday. Yeah, I got to get my days straight. Tomorrow and Thursday. So thank you for covering for me the next couple of days.
It's always a pleasure, Michael. So have a couple of good days off.
I will do my best. I'll be busy, but I'm going to do my best to enjoy some time off. Thank you very much, Andrea.
Thank you.